The Apache woman's question. Cowboy, why does your gun rise when I touch it? The sun hung low over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The heat of the afternoon pressed down on the plains, making the earth shimmer like it was alive. Samuel, a lone cowboy, rode slowly along the dusty trail. His horse, a strong and steady brown stallion named Rust, trotted carefully, lifting its hooves cautiously over rocks and dry sand. Samuel's face was tanned and weathered from years under the sun, and his eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the horizon. He carried a leather satchel with supplies for the small settlement nearby, and at his hip hung his trusted gun, always within easy reach. Life on the plains was never simple, and every traveler had to be ready for danger at any moment. Samuel knew this well. He'd been riding for hours without seeing another person. The silence of the desert was almost deafening. Only the occasional buzz of a grasshopper or the distant cry of a hawk broke the quiet. Samuel was used to this solitude, but on this day he felt a strange sense that something, or someone, was nearby. He tightened his grip on Rust's reins and slowed the horse to a cautious walk. The wind shifted, carrying with it a faint scent of smoke and something else he couldn't quite identify. He narrowed his eyes, scanning the small hills and dry bushes along the trail. From the top of a ridge, a small figure appeared, moving carefully through the sparse vegetation. Samuel squinted. It was a woman, moving with quiet confidence and grace, despite the harsh sun. Her dark hair glinted in the sunlight, and her skin was bronzed from days spent under the desert sun. She carried a bundle of herbs and roots in her arms, gathering them carefully from the dry earth. Samuel had seen many travelers in his time, but there was something different about this woman. She moved as if she belonged to the land itself, knowing every step, every rock, and every hidden shadow. As Samuel approached, the woman looked up and caught sight of him. Her dark eyes widened, and for a moment they simply stared at each other. There was no fear in her gaze, only curiosity and a hint of amusement. Samuel slowed Rust even further, giving her space. He had learned that rushing or showing aggression often caused trouble. This woman did not look like someone who would cause trouble, yet her confidence made him cautious. "Hello," Samuel said carefully, tipping his hat. "I don't mean to startle you, just passing through." The woman studied him for a moment, then nodded slightly. "I see," she said softly. Her voice was calm, almost musical, but carried a strength that surprised Samuel. "You walk carefully in this land. Not many do." Samuel smiled faintly, adjusting his satchel. "You know these plains well, I see. Not many people live out here. Even fewer women walk alone." She laughed lightly, a sound that carried across the dry hills. "I am not afraid," she said. "I have walked these lands since I was a child. I know its dangers. And you are careful, yes. But there is something about you. Your hand, it rests near your gun, always ready." "It's wise to be ready," he said, his voice calm but cautious. "These lands are not always safe. One must be prepared." The woman stepped closer, her eyes observing him carefully. She reached out, just slightly, brushing her fingers near the handle of his gun. Immediately, Samuel's hand twitched, and his gun rose slightly without him thinking. He froze, startled. He had practiced for years, known every trick of his reflexes, and never had this happened before. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from curiosity and surprise. "Cowboy," she said, her tone gentle but firm, "why does your gun rise when I touch it?" Samuel stared at her, a mix of astonishment and wonder on his face. He had never met anyone who could affect him this way, not in his entire life. He loosened his grip and let his hand fall back to the reins, though the reflex lingered like a puzzle he could not solve. I don't know," he said honestly, his voice low. "I've never seen anything like this." She seemed almost amused, as if she had expected this reaction all along. "Perhaps it is not your hand," she said thoughtfully. "Perhaps it is something else, something you do not understand yourself." Samuel felt a strange pull in his chest, a sense that meeting her was no accident. There was a quiet power about her, a wisdom that came from knowing the land, the wind, and the ways of life in the desert. He had always been a solitary man, trusting few, but now he felt drawn to her presence, curious to learn more. "My name is Samuel," he said finally, tipping his hat again. "And you are?" "Naeli," she replied. "I live nearby with my people. I gather what the land offers. It is our way to survive, to respect the earth, and to care for what we have. You are different from the men I see in the settlements." Samuel nodded. "I am used to being alone. The plains teach you patience, and the skies teach you caution. But I've never met someone like you before." For a long moment, they simply watched each other. The wind rustled through the dry grass, carrying the faint scent of sage and desert flowers. The sun beat down on their shoulders, but neither seemed concerned about the heat. In that quiet moment, a bridge of understanding began to form, a connection born from respect, curiosity, and a hint of destiny. Nayeli gestured to the bundles in her arms. "These herbs will heal, and these roots will feed. The land is generous if you know how to listen." Samuel looked at the herbs and then back at her. "You have knowledge I could never have on my own. Maybe we can learn from each other." She smiled softly, a mixture of pride and amusement. "Perhaps. But remember, Cowboy, the land does not forgive carelessness. And some things cannot be taught, only felt." Samuel chuckled, a sound rough from years of dusty winds and sun. "I've always felt that. I just never thought I would meet someone who could test me in a way I didn't understand." As the afternoon passed, they walked together for a short distance, Samuel guiding Rust carefully and Nayeli moving with the quiet confidence of someone who knew every stone and shadow. Every step felt like a story in itself, each word they exchanged carrying weight and meaning. Samuel began to realize that meeting Nayeli was more than chance. It was as if the desert had sent her to him, to teach him, to challenge him, and perhaps to change him. By the time the sun began to sink below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desert, Samuel and Nayeli reached the edge of a small waterhole. The reflection of the sky shimmered in the calm water, and for a moment both of them paused. Samuel dismounted carefully, patting Rust's neck. Nayeli knelt to examine some herbs near the water, her fingers brushing the earth gently. "Tomorrow," she said, looking up at him, "I will show you how the land speaks, but for now, rest." Even the strongest need pause. Samuel nodded, feeling a mix of respect, awe, and curiosity. He had no idea what lay ahead, no idea why her touch had caused his reflex, or what this meeting would bring. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of wonder, a spark that life on the plains rarely offered. And as night fell over the desert, the cowboy and the Apache woman sat near the waterhole, watching the stars appear, each one a reminder of the vastness of the world and the mysteries it held. In the quiet of the desert their story had begun, not with danger or conflict, but with curiosity, respect, and a question that neither of them could yet answer. Why did his gun rise when she touched it? And so the plains whispered around them, carrying the promise of friendship, trust, and a journey neither Samuel nor Nayeli would ever forget. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, spilling light across the dry plains and casting long shadows behind the cacti. The air was crisp, with a hint of coolness before the heat of the day arrived. Samuel had slept near the waterhole, resting under a small outcropping of rocks that offered shade. Rust, his brown stallion, nickered softly as Samuel approached with a bucket of water. The horse's mane shone golden in the sunlight, and Samuel patted his neck gently, murmuring words of encouragement. There was a calm rhythm to life in the desert, a steady beat that required patience and care. Samuel had learned to live by it, but meeting Nayeli had stirred something new in him, a curiosity, a feeling he had not known in years. He saw Nayeli already moving among the bushes, collecting herbs with careful hands. Her movements were precise, almost like a dance, as she searched for leaves, roots, and small flowers that grew stubbornly in the rocky soil. She worked quickly but deliberately, aware of every shadow and sound around her. Even in her daily routine, she seemed to command respect from the land itself. Samuel watched quietly, marveling at how she moved and how she seemed to notice things most people would overlook. Nayeli glanced up and caught Samuel watching her. She raised an eyebrow, and a small smile tugged at her lips. "You are early," she said, her voice calm and steady. Most men would still be asleep, dreaming of easier paths. Samuel smiled, leaning on Rust's back. "I've never been one to waste daylight," he said. "There's work to do, and the land doesn't wait for anyone. But you seem at home here. It's as if the desert itself follows your rhythm." She laughed softly, a sound that carried over the small clearing. "I have learned from the land, not just how to take from it, but how to listen. The desert speaks if you know how to hear. There are signs in the wind, in the plants, and even in the animals. You are different. You have strength, but there is also caution. I can see it in how you move, how your hand rests near your gun." Samuel's hand twitched slightly as it brushed the leather holster. The reflex still lingered from the previous day, though he had tried to ignore it. "I suppose caution is a good thing," he said. I have learned it from hard lessons. Danger comes when you least expect it. But tell me, Naeli, why do you not fear it? Fear does not guide me. Knowledge does. Understanding doesn't. I know the land, and I know its moods. When I see shadows move differently or the wind carries a strange scent, I pay attention. Fear would only slow me down. Samuel nodded slowly. There was wisdom in her words, wisdom that came not from books or stories, but from experience and respect for the world around her. I think I can learn from you, he said honestly. There is more to surviving out here than just knowing how to handle a gun. I see that now. For the next few hours, they moved together through the small canyons and rocky trails. Naeli pointed out plants with healing properties, teaching Samuel how to recognize them and how to prepare them. She showed him which roots could be boiled for nourishment, which leaves could be crushed for poultices, and which berries were safe to eat. Samuel listened intently, asking questions and trying to remember every detail. It was different from the lessons he had learned from other cowboys or settlers. This knowledge was alive, tied to the earth and the rhythm of the desert itself. Samuel, in turn, shared his own skills. He showed Naeli how to move quietly without disturbing the surroundings, how to read tracks in the sand to tell which animals or people had passed by, and how to find water in hidden places where the desert seemed dry. Naeli observed carefully, impressed by his experience and attention to detail. There was a silent respect growing between them, a recognition that each had something the other needed. During a pause near a shaded rock, Naeli studied Samuel curiously. "Tell me," she asked, "why does your hand still twitch near your gun when I am close?" Samuel looked down, unsure how to explain. I don't know," he admitted. "It is as if something inside me reacts when you are near. I have trained for years to control my reflexes, and yet, when you touch near the holster, it rises on its own. I can't explain it." Naeli's eyes sparkled. She reached out, gently brushing his hand again. As before, his gun moved slightly, almost as if it had a mind of its own. Naeli smiled, not with fear, but with fascination. "It is strange," she said softly, "and yet it feels like a connection. Not just skill or reflex, but something more. There was no danger here, but there was something powerful in her presence, a force he could not name. He looked into her eyes and felt a strange warmth, a bond forming between them that had nothing to do with the desert or the lessons they shared. It was a quiet understanding, a recognition of mutual respect and trust. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became intense. They found a small stream flowing through a rocky gap, water clear and cool. Samuel dismounted, letting Russ drink first, and Naeli knelt by the water to wash the dust from her hands and face. The sound of running water brought relief, and for a moment both of them sat in silence, listening to the gentle trickle. "You have learned quickly," Naeli said finally, standing and brushing her hands on her skirt. "You are not just a cowboy, Samuel. You are careful, observant, willing to see beyond what others notice." Samuel smiled faintly. "And you are remarkable. I have never met anyone who moves through the world with such understanding. You see more in an hour than I see in a week." Naeli laughed softly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you simply do not look closely enough. You have learned something today, though, yes?" Samuel nodded. "Yes. I have learned that there is more to surviving than guns and strength. There is knowledge, patience, and respect. I see that now, and I have learned that some things cannot be explained, only felt." The hours passed quickly as they continued their walk, teaching and learning from each other. Samuel's curiosity about the land and its secrets grew, and Naeli's respect for the cowboy deepened. She could see that he was not like the men who came through the settlements, those who took without thought or respect. He was different. He was steady, careful, and willing to listen. By late afternoon, they reached a small plateau overlooking the plains. The view was breathtaking. Miles of rolling desert dotted with cacti, small shrubs, and distant mountains that glowed in the sunlight. The sky was a brilliant blue, stretching endlessly above them. Samuel dismounted, leaning on Rust, and Naeli stood beside him, her eyes taking in the vastness of the land. "You see," Naeli said softly, "the land is alive. It tells stories if you know how to listen. The wind, the earth, even the shadows, they speak. And you are beginning to hear them." Samuel looked at her, awe and gratitude in his eyes. "I feel it," he said. "I feel like I am part of something bigger, something I have never understood before. And I feel drawn to learn more. From you, from the land, from life itself." Naeli smiled, placing a hand on a nearby rock. "Then listen carefully, Samuel. Watch closely." The world teaches those who are willing to see. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in gold and crimson once again, they made camp near the plateau. Samuel set up a small fire, and Nayeli arranged some herbs nearby for drying. They shared a simple meal of dried meat and berries, talking quietly as the stars began to appear. The desert night was alive with sounds, coyotes in the distance, the rustle of small animals in the brush, and the whisper of the wind through the rocks. For the first time in his life, Samuel felt a sense of belonging, not just in the desert, but in the presence of someone who understood it. Nayeli, too, felt a sense of calm and curiosity. The cowboy was strong and careful, but he was also open to learning, willing to listen, and respectful of the land. Their connection, though quiet and slow, was undeniable. As they watched the stars emerge, one by one, Samuel could not help but think of the strange reflex of his gun, how it rose whenever Nayeli touched near it. He did not understand it, but he no longer feared it. Instead, he felt it was part of a larger mystery, a bond that was beginning to form between them. Nayeli, noticing his gaze, smiled softly. "Some things cannot be explained," she said gently. "They are felt, not understood. Perhaps this is one of them." Samuel nodded, feeling a sense of peace he had not known in years. The desert stretched endlessly around them, but he was no longer alone. With Nayeli by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together they could navigate the land, its mysteries, and its dangers. And so the morning lessons turned into an afternoon of discovery, and the afternoon into an evening of quiet reflection. Samuel and Nayeli had begun to build a bond of trust, curiosity, and respect, a bond that would guide them through the days and challenges to come. The desert, vast and alive, had brought them together, and in its quiet, endless rhythm, a story was unfolding, one of friendship, mystery, and a connection neither of them fully understood, but both would come to cherish. The next few days passed with a quiet rhythm. Samuel and Nayeli moved together through the desert, learning from each other, sharing stories, and observing the land with careful attention. Samuel had begun to understand the subtle signs that Nayeli noticed, the direction of the wind, the movement of birds, even the smell of the earth after a rare desert rain. Nayeli, in turn, was impressed by Samuel's skill with tracking and reading the land. She realized he had a patience and precision that few men possessed, and she felt her respect for him deepen. One evening, as the sun sank behind distant mountains and the sky turned a deep shade of orange, Nayeli and Samuel returned to the small stream where they had first camped together. They were tired but satisfied, having gathered herbs and roots, and Samuel had helped reinforce a small path that Nayeli used regularly. The desert was quiet except for the rustle of small animals and the whisper of the wind. As they sat by the water, Nayeli's expression grew serious. "Samuel," she said quietly, "I have seen something troubling. Outlaws have been moving near our village. They are strangers from the east, looking for easy targets. They do not respect the land or the people. They take what they want and leave destruction behind." Samuel's face darkened. He had dealt with outlaws before, men who thought the desert was theirs to plunder. "How close are they?" he asked, his hand instinctively brushing near his holster. The reflex still lingered whenever Nayeli was near, and he felt it even now. "They are close enough," Nayeli said. "I saw them yesterday, moving through the hills to the north. They are not many, perhaps a dozen, but they are dangerous. They have weapons, and they will not hesitate to harm anyone who gets in their way." Samuel nodded, considering their options. "We need to warn your people, and if they do attack, we need a plan to protect them." Nayeli hesitated. "I cannot ask you to fight for us," she said. "These are my people. We have ways to defend ourselves. But you are not part of this. It is dangerous." Samuel shook his head. "I am part of it now. I will not let them harm you or your village. We will find a way to protect everyone, together." Over the next few hours, they devised a plan. Nayeli knew the land better than anyone, and she guided Samuel through hidden trails and rocky passes that would give them a strategic advantage. Samuel's knowledge of tracking, aiming, and reading signs of danger complemented her skills perfectly. He began to notice, more than ever, the strange reflex in his hand. Whenever Nayeli indicated a possible threat, his gun seemed to respond before he even consciously moved. It was unsettling yet reassuring, as if they were connected in some way he could not explain. As night fell, they took turns keeping watch near the village. The Apache people slept in their homes, unaware of the approaching danger. Samuel and Nayeli moved silently among the shadows, their senses alert. Every crack of a branch, every whisper of wind, put them on edge. They communicated with small gestures and whispers, building a silent understanding that went beyond words. Suddenly movement caught Samuel's eye. A group of men, poorly armed but determined, crept toward the outskirts of the village. He signaled to Naeli, who nodded, her eyes sharp and unwavering. Samuel's hand rose instinctively, the reflex he could not explain, and he realized it was pointing directly at the leader of the group. Naeli whispered instructions, guiding him through the terrain, telling him when to move and when to stay hidden. The outlaws had not expected resistance. They moved carelessly, unaware of the pair watching from the shadows. Samuel and Naeli worked in perfect coordination. He used his skill and precision to anticipate their moves, while she guided him through paths the outlaws could not see. The reflex in his hand seemed to act as a warning system, a strange connection that allowed them to anticipate danger together. Hours passed in tense silence. The outlaws tried to sneak closer, but Samuel and Naeli were always one step ahead. When one man approached too near, Samuel's gun moved almost on its own, and a warning shot rang out, startling the group. Naeli had signaled him with a subtle gesture, and he had reacted instinctively, saving them both from being discovered. The confrontation was not yet physical, but the tension was unbearable. Samuel realized that his reflex was more than a quirk. It was a sign of the bond forming between them. Naeli's presence seemed to sharpen his senses, heighten his awareness, and give him an almost preternatural understanding of danger. He could not explain it, but he trusted it completely. As the night deepened, the outlaws grew bolder. They split into small groups, trying to circle the village. Samuel and Naeli anticipated each move. Using rocks, shadows, and the natural contours of the land, they created a path of obstacles and surprises. Every time the outlaws approached, Samuel's gun moved instinctively in response to Naeli's guidance. The reflex had become a tool, a strange, unexplainable advantage that neither of them fully understood, but both relied upon. Finally, just before dawn, the outlaws realized that something was wrong. Their numbers were diminishing, and they had lost the element of surprise. Samuel and Naeli, moving with silent efficiency, had guided them into traps and forced them to retreat. Exhausted but victorious, they watched as the last of the outlaws disappeared into the desert. The village was safe, and not a single Apache life had been harmed. Naeli turned to Samuel, her eyes wide with amazement. "I have never seen anything like this," she said. "You, your reflex, your skill, it is as if the land itself works with us." Samuel shook his head, still breathing heavily from the tension. "I don't know why it happens," he admitted. "I've trained for years, but this is different. When you guide me, it's like my body knows what to do before my mind even thinks. I can't explain it." She smiled softly, placing a hand on his arm. "Some things cannot be explained. They are felt, not understood. But what we have done together tonight, that is real. You saved many lives, Samuel. And you did it without fear, with patience, and with respect for the land and my people." He had fought outlaws before, but never with this strange connection guiding him. He realized that Naeli's knowledge, her calm courage, and her understanding of the desert had been just as important as his skill with a gun. Together they had been unstoppable. As the first rays of sunlight touched the desert, painting the hills in gold, Samuel and Naeli returned to the village. The Apache people began to stir, emerging from their homes to see that the danger had passed. They greeted Naeli with relief and gratitude, and Samuel watched as she moved among them, proud and calm. He knew that his presence had been unusual for them, yet they accepted him, perhaps because they could see the respect he had shown for their land and their people. By mid-morning, the village was alive with activity again. Children ran through the streets, women tended to their daily chores, and the men repaired what had been disturbed. Samuel helped where he could, learning more about the ways of the people and sharing what he knew. Naeli remained by his side, guiding him gently and teaching him as they worked. As they sat together near the stream once more, Naeli turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "You've proven yourself, Samuel, not just with skill, but with your heart. Did not fight for glory or reward. You fought because it was the right thing to do. That is rare in this world." Samuel looked at her, feeling a deep respect and admiration. "I could not have done it without you," he said. "Your guidance, your knowledge, it saved lives. And I feel something I have not felt in years. A connection, a bond. I do not fully understand it, but I trust it." Naeli smiled, her eyes softening. "Trust is the first step toward understanding, and perhaps in time you will understand more. But for now, know that what we have done together, it matters, and it has changed us both." The sun rose higher, warming the desert, and Samuel and Naeli stood together, looking out over the village and the plains beyond. The danger had passed, but the lessons remained. They had learned to trust each other, to rely on instincts and knowledge, and to move as one in the face of threat. The strange reflex in Samuel's hand was still there, mysterious and unexplainable, but he no longer feared it. Instead, he embraced it as part of the connection that had formed between him and Naeli. As they prepared to continue their journey through the desert, Samuel felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. He was no longer just a lone cowboy wandering the plains. He was part of something greater, connected to Naeli, to her people, and to the land itself. And Naeli, too, felt a quiet confidence, knowing that with Samuel by her side, they could face whatever challenges the desert might bring. The desert stretched endlessly around them, beautiful and dangerous, full of mystery and life. And in that vast, sunlit world, two unlikely allies had discovered the strength of trust, the power of knowledge, and the beginnings of a bond that neither time nor distance could break. The desert was quiet at dawn, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. The air carried the faint scent of sagebrush, and the first light of morning reflected off the distant hills, creating a golden haze over the plains. Samuel and Naeli had spent the night near a small ridge, overlooking the paths the outlaws might use. Their bodies were tense with anticipation, but their minds were sharp, focused on the task ahead. They had studied the terrain carefully, and Samuel had learned to trust the strange reflex in his hand, which moved his gun almost instinctively whenever Naeli indicated a threat. As the first signs of movement appeared in the distance, Samuel pointed toward the hills. "There," he whispered. "I see them." Naeli nodded, her dark eyes focused and steady. "Split into two groups," she said softly. "One will try to circle from the west, the other will come straight toward the village. We must act quickly." Samuel felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his expression calm. The reflex in his hand moved again, guiding the gun upward, ready before his mind fully registered the direction of danger. It was unsettling yet comforting, as if the desert itself had lent him a part of its awareness. Naeli gestured with subtle hand movements, pointing toward paths the outlaws could not see. Samuel understood immediately, moving Rust carefully to the position she indicated. The outlaws crept through the hills, unaware of the trap forming around them. Samuel and Naeli used the terrain to their advantage, hiding behind rocks and shrubs, silent and patient. Every move was calculated. Samuel had never experienced such coordination before. It was as if his instincts and Naeli's guidance had created a single mind working toward one purpose. When the first outlaw came too close to the ridge, Samuel's gun rose without thought. He fired a warning shot that ricocheted off a nearby rock, startling the man and forcing him to retreat. Naeli's eyes narrowed, and she pointed to another path, signaling the approach of a second group. Samuel adjusted his aim instinctively, guiding Rust with gentle movements and careful steps. The reflex was precise, and he realized that each movement was perfectly synchronized with Naeli's signals. Hours passed in tense silence. The outlaws grew frustrated, trying different paths, but Samuel and Naeli anticipated every move. They created obstacles using fallen branches and rocks, forcing the outlaws into narrow paths where they could be watched and controlled. Samuel marveled at how seamlessly they worked together. Naeli's knowledge of the land complemented his skills perfectly, and the strange reflex continued to act like a silent warning system. At one point, a small group of outlaws split off to flank the village. Samuel's gun moved automatically as he noticed the subtle signs of their approach. Naeli whispered instructions, and together they guided the men into a narrow canyon where their movement was slowed and easily observed. Samuel's shots rang out in the distance, carefully aimed to warn and not to harm, forcing the outlaws to retreat further. The sun climbed higher, and the heat of the desert became intense. Sweat ran down Samuel's face, but he did not waver. Naeli's presence near him kept him focused, her calm confidence steadying his nerves. Every time she touched near his arm or gestured, the reflex in his hand reacted instantly, moving the gun in the right direction. It was almost as if they shared a silent communication, a connection that needed no words. Finally, the leader of the outlaws appeared, a tall man with a cruel expression and a rifle slung across his shoulder. He moved carefully, scanning the landscape for any signs of resistance. Samuel's gun rose instinctively, guided by the subtle signals Naeli gave. She pointed with her eyes, indicating the path the leader would take. Samuel fired a shot that landed harmlessly near a rock, causing the man to stumble and look around in confusion. Naeli moved swiftly, leading Samuel through a hidden path that allowed them to flank the outlaws from behind. The leader's eyes widened as he realized they were not alone. Samuel's gun moved with uncanny precision, aimed to block any escape routes without unnecessary harm. The reflex was still there, guiding his actions in perfect sync with Naeli's directions. The other outlaws, seeing their leader in trouble, tried to regroup, But Samuel and Nayeli anticipated every move. Using the landscape, they guided the men into positions where they could be easily observed and controlled. The combination of skill, strategy, and instinct was unstoppable. Nayeli whispered warnings, and Samuel reacted instantly, moving his gun and body with a speed and precision that surprised even him. As the confrontation reached its peak, Samuel and Nayeli worked seamlessly. One outlaw tried to escape through a narrow path, but Samuel's reflex guided his gun toward the man, forcing him to retreat. Another approached from behind a ridge, only to be blocked by Nayeli's quick thinking and Samuel's careful aim. The strange connection between them had become a powerful tool, one that neither fully understood but both relied upon completely. The outlaws began to retreat, realizing they could not win against two people who seemed to anticipate every move. Samuel and Nayeli did not pursue aggressively. Instead, they used strategy and timing to force the men to abandon their attack. By mid-morning, the last of the outlaws had fled into the desert, leaving the village safe. Not a single Apache person had been harmed, and the landscape remained intact. Nayeli turned to Samuel, her expression a mixture of relief and awe. "I have never seen such skill," she said softly. "You, your reflex, your instincts. It is as if the land itself protects us." Samuel shook his head, still catching his breath. "I do not know why it happens," he admitted. "I've trained my whole life, but this is different. When you guide me, my hand reacts before I even think. I cannot explain it." She smiled, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Some things cannot be explained," she said. "They are felt, not understood. But what we have done together, it is real. And it has saved lives. That is all that matters." Samuel looked out over the village, the people beginning to emerge from their homes, their expressions a mixture of relief and gratitude. Children ran through the streets, women tended to their daily chores, and men repaired what had been disturbed. Nayeli moved among them, proud and calm, while Samuel helped where he could. He felt a quiet sense of belonging, something he had never known before. As the sun reached its peak, casting bright light over the desert, Samuel and Nayeli sat near the stream once more. "You were remarkable today," Nayeli said, "not just in skill, but in your patience and respect. You did not act recklessly or seek glory. You acted with thought and care? That is rare." Samuel nodded. "I could not have done it without you. Your guidance, your knowledge, it saved lives. And I feel something I have not felt in years. A connection, a bond. I do not fully understand it, but I trust it." The heat of the day rose, and the desert seemed to shimmer around them. Samuel's gaze fell on Nayeli, seeing her strength, courage, and calm determination. She had been his guide, his teacher, and his partner in a way no one else had ever been. The strange reflex in his hand had been a mystery, but he no longer feared it. It was part of the bond they shared, a connection that had proven invaluable in the most dangerous of situations. By late afternoon, the village was bustling again. Samuel helped repair fences and clear paths, while Nayeli moved gracefully among her people, teaching, guiding, and protecting. They shared quiet moments of conversation, laughter, and understanding. Samuel realized that the desert had brought him something more than survival. It had brought him trust, friendship, and a bond he could not explain but deeply valued. As the day ended, the sun setting in brilliant shades of orange and purple, Samuel and Nayeli sat together on a ridge overlooking the village. The battle was over, but the lessons remained. They had learned to trust each other completely, to rely on instinct, skill, and knowledge, and to move as one when faced with danger. The strange reflex in Samuel's hand was still there, mysterious and unexplainable, but it had become a part of their teamwork, a silent reminder of the bond forming between them. Nayeli placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have proven yourself, Samuel, not just as a warrior, but as someone who can understand the land, its people, and the trust it requires. You are no longer just a visitor here. You are part of this now, part of something greater." Samuel looked out over the plains, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known before. "I feel it too," he said quietly. "I am no longer just a lone cowboy wandering the desert. I am connected to you, to your people, and to this land, and I will do everything I can to protect it." As night fell and stars appeared one by one, the desert seemed alive with quiet whispers. Samuel and Nayeli knew that challenges would come again, but for now, they had succeeded. They had faced danger together, relied on instinct and skill, and proven that trust and cooperation could overcome even the most threatening odds. And in that vast, endless desert, two unlikely allies had discovered the strength of teamwork, the power of trust, and the beginnings of a connection that neither time nor distance could break. The sun had set, the village was safe, and the story of Samuel and Nayeli's courage would be remembered for years to come. The sun rose slowly over the desert, spilling warm light across the plains. The air was calm, and the wind carried the familiar scent of sagebrush and dry earth. Samuel and Nayeli stood near the stream where they had often rested, their eyes scanning the horizon. The events of the past days still lingered in their minds, the outlaws, the tense nights, and the strange reflex in Samuel's hand that had guided them through danger. Yet now, with the village safe and the desert quiet, there was a sense of peace and accomplishment that filled the air. Nayeli looked at Samuel, her dark eyes thoughtful. "The village is safe," she said softly. "The outlaws have gone, and your people, my people, can live without fear. You have done more than anyone could have imagined." Samuel shook his head. "I could not have done it without you. Your guidance, your knowledge of the land, it made all the difference. And that reflex, whatever it is, it saved us more than once. I still do not understand it, but I trust it." Nayeli smiled gently. "Some things cannot be explained. They are felt, not understood. That is part of the desert's mystery, perhaps, or maybe it is part of our connection." Samuel felt a warmth in his chest he had never experienced before. It was more than gratitude. It was something deeper, a bond formed through shared danger, mutual respect, and quiet understanding. The reflex in his hand, which had once startled him, now felt like a symbol of that connection, an unspoken language between them. The villagers began to emerge from their homes, greeting each other with relief and joy. Children ran freely, their laughter echoing through the small settlement. Women brought out food and water, while men repaired fences and checked the boundaries of the village. Samuel and Nayeli moved among them, helping where they could, though much of the work had been done already. They received smiles of gratitude, nods of respect, and, in some cases, quiet awe. The villagers had seen Samuel's skill and bravery, and they could sense the deep respect he had shown for Nayeli and her people. As the day progressed, Samuel and Nayeli found a quiet spot under a large mesquite tree, away from the bustle of the village. The branches provided shade, and the gentle breeze made the heat of the day bearable. They sat together, sharing a simple meal of bread, dried meat, and herbs that Nayeli had prepared. It was a peaceful moment, a rare pause after days of tension and alertness. "You know," Samuel said thoughtfully, breaking the silence, "I have wandered the desert for years, and I have never felt anything like this. Not just the danger, not just the skills we used, but this connection. It is strange, and I do not fully understand it, but I feel it every time you are near." Nayeli looked at him, her expression softening. "I feel it too," she admitted. "It is not just about skill or reflex. It is about trust, understanding, and respect. We have learned to rely on each other, and in doing so we have formed a bond that is stronger than words can describe." Samuel nodded, letting the warmth of her words settle in. "I have always been alone," he said quietly. "But with you, I feel that I am part of something greater. I am not just a cowboy wandering the plains. I am connected to you, to your people, and to this land." Nayeli reached out and placed a hand on his arm. "And I trust you, Samuel. You have proven that your heart is strong, that your intentions are pure. You fight not for glory, but for what is right. That is rare in this world, and it makes all the difference." For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the village and the gentle whisper of the wind through the trees. It was a peaceful, almost sacred moment, a reward after the tension and danger of the past days. Samuel realized that he had never felt such a sense of calm, such a sense of belonging. Nayeli had shown him a new way to see the desert, not just as a place of survival, but as a place of life, connection, and understanding. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, they stood and began to walk through the village together. Samuel helped a young boy repair a broken fence post, showing him how to use simple tools. Nayeli guided a small group of children in identifying herbs and plants that could be used for healing. Their presence was calming and inspiring to the villagers. Samuel noticed the way the children looked up to him, not with fear, but with admiration, and he realized how much he had grown in just a few days. Later, Samuel and Nayeli climbed a small hill overlooking the plains. The view stretched endlessly, with rolling desert, distant mountains, and a sky so wide it seemed to hold the entire world. They sat together, their legs dangling over the edge of the rock, watching the wind move the grasses below. "I never thought I would find something like this," Samuel said quietly. "Not just safety, not just a bond with a person, but a connection to the land and to people who are so different from me. And yet, it feels natural, like it has always been meant to be." Nayeli smiled, her dark eyes reflecting the sunlight. "The desert has a way of teaching those who listen. It shows you what is important, and it reveals what is true. You have learned quickly, Samuel, and you have proven yourself worthy of trust and respect. Samuel's hand brushed near his holster instinctively, though the danger had long passed. Nayeli noticed and laughed softly. "Still that reflex," she said. "It moves with you even when there is no threat. Perhaps it is a reminder of what we have faced together, of the bond we share." Samuel chuckled, feeling a mix of amusement and awe. "Maybe it is," he said. "Whatever it is, I do not want to lose it. I do not want to forget what we have learned or how we have grown. You have changed me, Nayeli, more than I can explain." Nayeli reached out, lightly touching his hand. The reflex stirred, as it always did, and Samuel felt a shiver of recognition, a reminder of the connection they shared. "And you have changed me," she said softly. "I have always trusted my people and my knowledge of the land, but now I see that trust can extend beyond what is familiar. You have shown me that courage and respect can exist even in someone from a different world." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple, they walked back toward the village. The Apache people were gathering near the center, preparing for an evening meal and sharing stories of the past days. Samuel and Nayeli joined them, quietly observing and participating where they could. The atmosphere was warm and joyful, a sharp contrast to the fear and tension of the previous nights. Nayeli leaned slightly toward Samuel. "Our work is not done," she whispered. "There will always be challenges, dangers, and uncertainties. But now we know that together we can face them. That is what matters most." Samuel nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I will be here," he said firmly. "I will stand by you, by your people, and by this land. Whatever comes, we face it together." As night fell, stars appeared, one by one, filling the sky with a quiet brilliance. The desert was alive with subtle sounds. The rustle of small animals, the distant call of an owl, and the whisper of wind through the rocks and trees. Samuel and Nayeli sat together near the stream, watching the reflection of the stars in the water. They did not need words. The bond between them spoke more clearly than any conversation could. In the days that followed, life returned to its natural rhythm. Samuel became a part of the village, helping with tasks, learning more about the land, and deepening his connection with Nayeli. The strange reflex in his hand remained, a reminder of their journey, the dangers they had faced, and the trust they had built. Nayeli continued to teach him the ways of the land, showing him how to read the subtle signs of weather, animals, and the desert itself. Their connection grew stronger with each passing day. They shared quiet moments of reflection, laughter, and storytelling. Samuel realized that the bond they had formed was not just about survival. It was about respect, understanding, and a deeper sense of purpose. Nayeli, too, saw in Samuel a partner she could trust, someone who respected her knowledge, her people, and the land they both loved. The desert, vast and unending, had brought them together in a way neither could have predicted. It had tested their courage, their skill, and their trust. And in the quiet moments, after the storm of danger, it had given them something far greater, a connection that would endure, a bond that could not be broken by distance or circumstance. As the first light of a new day touched the horizon, Samuel and Nayeli stood side by side, looking out over the plains. The village was safe, the desert was alive, and the bond they shared had been tested and strengthened. Samuel's hand brushed near his holster, the reflex stirring, and he smiled. Nayeli touched his hand gently, and he felt the familiar shiver of connection. Together they had faced danger, learned from each other, and discovered a bond that was stronger than fear or uncertainty. And as the sun rose higher, painting the desert in gold, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Two unlikely allies bound by trust, courage, and a connection that could not be explained, only felt.